And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Well, certainly not calm right now in Canucks land. Another day of Canucks drama on social media, with the team, etc., etc. Welcome to a Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Now, well, this is a solo from me, but Sean and Tyler are going to dig into this a little bit more. But I'm working tonight, and I wanted to have a conversation about the news of the day involving J.T. Miller, Elias Pettersson, and Jim Rutherford. And Jim Rutherford spoke to a longtime Vancouver journalist, Gary Mason of the Globe and Mail today. Well, actually, he spoke a couple of weeks ago, but the article came out today and essentially has done this. He's basically said that this situation with J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson is no longer tenable. He does not believe that this team is a contending team. And there's going to be some basically changes going forward. So we'll get into this whole situation, what this all means. And there is a Calgary Flames angle to this. And I will discuss that here in a moment. But let's get to the quote that is getting around the internet right now from Jim Rutherford on the Miller-Pettersson relationship, which he confirmed what Rick Tocchet confirmed, what Quinn Hughes confirmed a while ago. There has been a rift for a while between J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson. Here's the quote. I felt like for a long time that there was a solution here because everybody has worked on it, including the parties involved. But it only gets resolved for a short period of time, and then it festers again. And so it certainly appears like there's not a good solution that would keep this group together. Of course, the other situation that is in this entire pot of goodies that we have is the situation involving Brock Boeser. And then, of course, going forward, the future of Thatcher Demko and the future of Quinn Hughes. But the immediate future around the center of this is around J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson. And, of course, last week when we had the Mikko Rantanen for Martin Necas trade, and Taylor Hall involved. We heard that J.T. Miller name was in there. We heard Elias Pettersson's name was involved. A couple of Saturdays ago, we had a situation where J.T. Miller was reportedly going to be benched before that game against the Edmonton Oilers because there was a pending trade with the New York Rangers. So there's been a lot of smoke around the situation for some time. And, of course, we had before that J.T. Miller game, we go back to that game against Los Angeles, where J.T. Miller and Rick Tocchet have it out on the bench, and J.T. Miller is sitting in the corner of the bench because he made a couple of really bad defensive plays. Then he had a really good game against the Oilers. And he had a really good game against the Capitals on Saturday where he blocked 4 shots, and he was pretty good against St. Louis on Monday night. P.D. Pettersson was pretty good against the Oilers on that Saturday game. And then, of course, as part of this as well, as you had the situation with the game against the Oilers before that game against Washington, where, quite frankly, it was not a good effort and it was inept. And there was no response to a physical hit to Quinn Hughes on Corey Perry, which basically, protector of the Stars, Corey Perry goes into the board, takes Quinn Hughes and flips him into the boards. There's not really a response. Patrick Allvin, let's just add this one into the conversation here. Patrick Allvin does an interview with Ian McIntyre before Christmas, which essentially puts Pettersson on notice, and of course, that they needed more from him, needed more from other stars too. He did say that, but he did point out Pettersson. And he also said that he doesn't know what to expect night after night. And quite frankly, that's where a lot of Canucks fans are right at this point. You get some really good efforts like you've had here for the last, you had your first 2-game winning streak since the beginning of December. And then you get a dud against the Oilers after a pretty emotional vitriol game with the suspensions of McDavid and Myers. It's been like this all year. I mean, let's go back to the first game of the year. The Canucks jump out to a huge lead against the Flames and lose 6-5 in overtime. You could argue that to set the season for the Flames in one way, and it set the Canucks the season in one way. So this has been an absolute mess of a season. There's no question about it. And the question that comes across here is but you have this rift with J.T. Miller and Pettersson. This is going on for a while, according to reports. This was going on when Travis Green was the coach. This was going on when Bruce Boudreau was the coach, and now this is going on with Rick Tocchet, the coach. And of course, this also went on with Jim Benning as GM, and now with Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, and crew. And the interesting thing is Rutherford and Allvin extended both J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson. Of course, last February, you will remember that there was a conversation about before the Pettersson's signing that there was a potential trade on the table with the Carolina Hurricanes. It did not go through. The situation with Pettersson, of course, is he has a no movement after July 1st, so you can trade him anywhere to wherever you want. The situation with J.T. Miller is he's got a no movement. And then, of course, you got Brock Boeser, which is a factor in this only because you have to make a decision here. And according to Cam Robinson, the decision has been made that if they can't trade Boeser now, they're not going to sign him on July 1st. So essentially, whether it's today, tomorrow, or the 1st of July, we are at the end of the Brock Boeser era in Vancouver. I think that's pretty safe to say. So that's 3 of your big pieces of the core that is gone, that is essentially gone. And I don't think, let's be honest here. I think we are at the point that it is fair expectation to expect both J.T. Miller and Pettersson to be gone. I don't think that when I read Jim Rutherford's quotes, that there's any other way to look at this. I don't think he's taking sides. I think that they have thought about moving both of them for some time. I think that they've ultimately come to this conclusion. And of course, some of the other quotes is you're not to expect a big return. Don't expect a number 1 or a number 2 center, according to Rutherford. Don't expect a big return, necessarily a big return. So they're going to have to be patient. So a lot of questions have come out of this situation here. And I think there's enough blame on this pie to go to everybody. And let's start with the 2 players that are involved. Look, everybody gets into fights. People that work, go to school, whatever portion of life that you are involved in, there are people you do not get involved along with. That happens. And probably in 100% of the situations involved, all of the parties that are involved have some sort of blame. Now, I don't know what the blame is for J.T. Miller. I don't know what the blame is for Elias Pettersson, but they probably need to take some responsibility for their actions in this situation. I feel bad for both Quinn Hughes and, in some ways, the team and Rick Tocchet, because I think they've had to navigate a situation here that was really tough to navigate. You have 2 guys that are essentially considered superstars in this market, front-end players in this market. Your success is based on the play of both of them, and you need to kind of figure out what to do. I think Quinn Hughes, if you want a reason why Quinn Hughes should be in the Hart conversation, the fact that he's the captain of this team, navigating this situation and playing the way that he is, should put him at the top of the Hart Trophy conversation. I mean, he made an 2 goals against Washington, a beautiful pass against the Blues last night. He's just basically carrying this team. You want to talk about, I mean, we talk about physical ways of dragging people into battles. Quinn Hughes is dragging the Canucks through a battle right now. So I don't think he actually, in a lot of ways, I don't think he's to blame. And I think with Rick Tocchet, I think that there's been a lot of criticism about his tactics and his situation. I think he's been stuck in a rock and a hard place with this whole situation. And I'm trying to navigate what to do with Miller and Pettersson. It appears they can't play together. It appears that one of them, I mean, go back to that game against Los Angeles where he basically had to bench J.T. Miller. You don't want to bench J.T. Miller. He's one of your top forwards. You're not getting enough for Pettersson for about a year. There is a valid criticisms towards him. And no, he should not be called Mr. 11.6. But the fact of the matter is he's going to be paid $11.6 million. But ultimately, I think we need to navigate what Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin have done here. And I'm struggling to not... I'm kind of struggling here because I'm hearing a lot of different perceptions through the day. Maybe this is a strategic tactic for Jim Rutherford. He picks he picks this interview with a guy that's probably the most connected journalist to the ownership group in Vancouver, and Gary Mason, a well-respected journalist in Gary Mason that doesn't only cover sports, he covers news as well. Is this a move of strategy in terms of just trying to set the market for certain teams? Maybe. I don't know. Is this a move by Rutherford to motivate Miller and Pettersson to play better? Maybe. There was a point in the back of my mind yesterday that I wondered, did the Vancouver Canucks catch a little bit of break, not trading Miller and Pettersson to one of Carolina, Colorado, or whatever this weekend, and allow these two team players to work through it and allow this team to continue to navigate through this and become a team. That's how you win. You become a team. And when this Canucks team plays together, they're a good team. They are a playoff team. But when they play as individuals, like we've seen for the most part of this year, they're not a good team. They're not a playoff team. And they needed something to kind of galvanize them. And I thought maybe this might be it. But now this has been thrown into cold water. And I do think that this is where I criticize Rutherford and Allvin for their moves. Look, would there have been reports about the rift in the room, no matter what they said? Yes. Could Rutherford and Allvin have just put a kibosh to this? Also, yes. I think a simple solution would have been, we love J.T. Miller, we love Elias Pettersson, and we're keeping them going forward. If you remember in the Ian McIntyre interview with Patrick Allvin, Ian McIntyre asked Patrick Allvin, is a Pettersson trade on the table? And Allvin didn't say no. He said nothing is off the table, which said that all now. And then you got the J.T. Miller situation. I understand that there's a rift, and I also understand that this probably has become untenable. But you squash this thing like a bug as much as you can by saying there's no truth to these rumors. Deny it. Will people know it's true? Yes. And that it's yes. But what you're doing essentially is defending your team, which they have not done. And that's my biggest criticism with what Rutherford and Allvin have done. Their job from the top is, yes, you can criticize your team in terms of play. You can challenge your players in terms of play. I get it. But you're not defending your team. You're not defending your teammates. And that's the job of leadership. Leadership has essentially thrown J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson under the bus. And whether they deserve it or not, that is not what you need to do. And if I'm Miller's agent and if I'm Pettersson's agent, I'm right pissed at Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin. I'm right. And if I'm Rick Tocchet, I am also right pissed at Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin. This was handled. I'm sorry for any media member that thinks that this was handled with some sort of professionalism and decorum. I astoundingly disagree. You do not throw people under the bus. Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin threw players and teammates under the bus. And I will tell you, if I was an unrestricted free agent and I am considered to come to Vancouver, I would probably give you the middle finger. That is a lack of trust. And if I'm Thatcher Demko, and if I'm quite frankly Quinn Hughes, I have some questions to management about how you handle this. And let's not forget that they had Bruce Boudreau, whether you thought it was a good coaching move or not, piss in the wind for 3 weeks when everybody knew that he was gone. I think Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin need to take some damn accountability for how they handle this. Now, here's the other part that's the problem for both Miller and Pettersson. If and when they get traded, they are going to go into a new locker room with a unfortunate tarnish on their reputation because they are not going to be considered good teammates. And maybe there's some validity to it, but that's not something that they need to deal with right off the top. And I would assume whatever team that they end up going with, their leadership group will deal and converse with this. But it's also not fair to what you've done to Miller and Pettersson in this. This is the bottom line of the situation. I understand that this rift became untenable, and I do think that Miller and Pettersson deserve some criticism for that. But how this was handled by Canucks management was mind-bogglingly, I don't even have a word. It's mind-bogglingly stupid to me. I think they did the most. There was a poll question from Donnie and Dolly of who deserves most of the blame. It's management. It's management for how they handled this. And I think that there was also, here's the other thing. I think that you probably could have got a Pierre-Luc Dubois type of trade, at least at J.T. Miller. And I think you could have got a pretty reasonable deal out of Elias Pettersson. But I don't know if you get that now. I don't know if what that is. I think people are assuming that Rutherford's being strategic here. I think he's misplayed the market. I think this was mishandled. And I think it's, by the way, a valid, legitimate question. And if you knew that both of these players had these tensions, why did you sign them to contracts? I think that that is a very fair question that both of them need to answer. Now, I want to get to this from the Calgary Flames side just before I sign off here. And you can respond. And again, Sean and Tyler are going to have some thoughts on this as well. There are a number of people that will be writing articles on Calgary Flames Twitter that will be suggesting to you that Elias Pettersson is a great ad for the Calgary Flames. And I'm just going to simply add this with all due respect. No, he's not. I think Craig Conroy should absolutely avoid this entire mess. Here's why. You've got a guy that is an $11.6 million player with some prospects you probably are going to have to overpay to get because, A, this is a division rival. This will include a first-round pick. This will likely have to probably include a guy like Connor Zary or Matt Coronado, I'm guessing. You do not have the assets in the cupboard to make this trade. I think it's funny, by the way, it's interesting to me that the people that are suggesting to trade Rasmus Andersson want to acquire Elias Pettersson. And the argument is Andersson will turn 30. Petey's going to turn 32. And that contract's till 2032. Too much money. We're not sure where he is at his game. It's going to cost too much. I don't think that you need to be involved in this. I think the Flames can take a step away from this. There are other options out there. And probably somebody's going to have to move some money out to get one of them. So that's where the Flames need to look. Anyway, there's where I'm at. Who are you? What are your thoughts? Let us know. Follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.